When Miami was down in that game, 25 points down in the third quarter, down 20 points in the fourth quarter, a lot of you I saw were going to bed and giving up on your team at 2 a.m. Thankfully, Cam Ward never gave up on you.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I don't know if it's morning, afternoon, is it Sunday, is it Monday? I don't even care. Miami does it again. The Cardiac Canes come down from 25 behind midway through the third quarter. You're down 20 points in the fourth quarter. I don't know how they keep doing this. Well, I do know how, and we're going to break it down on this live episode of Locked On Canes. Since we are live right now, make sure you smash that like button if you're watching us on YouTube and subscribe to Locked On Canes. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods. I am Alex Dono, University of Miami alumnus. I can't remember the last time I slept. Co-host of Locked On ACC, and thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I was texting this morning with our guy, friend of the show, Rudy Tamarchio, and like, we got to do a live recap. Normally this would happen in the morning, but we tried to sleep in a little bit on this loaded episode of Locked On Canes after Miami's 39-38 improbable comeback win against Cal. We're going to talk about the new AP Top 25 poll, which literally just dropped a few minutes ago. The AP had so much work to do after all the upsets that we had yesterday. Thankfully, not us, that they usually put out the poll right at 2 o'clock. It came out at like 2:10, 2:15 today. We'll talk about more heroics from Cam Ward. And Rudy, let me start with this, man. Again, Miami's down 38 to 18, entering the later stages of the fourth quarter. A lot of folks were thinking, like, we can't do it 2 weeks in a row. Like, it's impossible. This is too big of a climb, too big of a deficit. Michael Irvin even said after the game, that was harder than last week. He said, did you think there was any way at that point when Miami was at their darkest hour last night, did you think there was any way Cam Ward could do it again?
Being a Miami fan for so long and seeing, incredible comebacks, two things needed to happen for that comeback to go through the way that it did. And that was the offense needed to start taking what the defense gave them and not turn the ball over. And the defense had to play complementary football too to get stops. And finally, they were able to do that. And, one quarter was enough because there was enough offense in that fourth quarter for Miami to make it look like it was a more dominant offensive performance than it was.
277 yards from Cam Ward, total yards in the second half of that game. Over 250 passing yards for Ward in the second half of that game. And I'll tell you when it really started to feel to me, Rudy, like it was going to be a loss. When Ward threw that pick six, which was it was an awful decision. He knew it. Mario Cristobal knew it. He and Shannon Dawson talked about it. And Ward, I don't think he was talking specifically about that play, but I was watching Cam's interview with SportsCenter right after the game. And he said, like, Dawson basically told him, not to be going for the jugular on every play, that they had to kind of stick with their identity, stick with the playbook. And, for as bad of a mistake as that was on that pick six, and of course it goes to Noel Williams, the guy who gets all the interceptions for Cal. He's having a ridiculous, I think that was his sixth interception on the season, fifth or sixth on the year. He's having a crazy year. But after that play, Ward, as usual, Rudy, shows off that short memory. The guy is completely unfazed. It's like he has no recollection of the catastrophic mistake he just made.
Yeah, I love that about him because it's something where even the coach had talked about after the game. It's one of those where you kind of live by the sword, die by the sword moments where he's always going to try to make the big play happen. And that's kind of the difference that I've seen from the first few games. We're like, yeah, he bought time against Florida, but he wasn't trying to force the ball 20, 30 yards down the field in those games. He was just finding the check down. And I think all of us were screaming, or at least trying to not scream at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, where you see like Damian Martinez in the flat or Mark Fletcher out in the flat wide open. And he's trying to force the ball down to like Jacoby George or somebody, or Arroyo, I think in that case of the pick six. But it didn't look good, particularly because the one thing I was worried about coming out of halftime was, okay, Cal gets the ball to start. can we figure this out? Because the defense looked great on the opening drive. Then they give up three straight touchdown drives. And granted, Miami didn't help because it looked a little desperate going for it on fourth down in the first half when they did at midfield. But at the same time, it felt like the game was getting out of control from the sense of they're not playing complementary football anymore. The first half, the defense wasn't complimenting the offense. And then to open up the second half, the offense isn't complimenting the defense because they got you a stop. And then you just throw the pick six. So it definitely felt off, but once they kind of started settling down, and we talked about this right before going on air, but I think we need to give a lot of credit to the strength and conditioning program for Miami, because it's one thing to start executing. It's another thing to start finding your checkdowns. It's another thing to start having more time, because Cal was running at such a frenetic pace on defense. They couldn't keep up that intensity for fourth quarters. That guy, number 0, the linebacker, looked like a much better Manti Te'o, a much bigger Manti Te'o out there, real girlfriend in the stands watching and cheering him on, thinking he's going to be in the NFL. And he couldn't do anything at the end in the second half. He's sitting there crying. Why? Because Miami finally started executing because they were fresh. And then the defense was fresh. They started getting pressure too, because that offensive line that was supposed to be so porous for Cal, well, we learned really early on, you don't need to worry about protecting for a sack if you're getting the ball out in 1.5, 2 seconds like they were doing, because they had some great play calls. They executed really well, but you can't keep them down for 4 straight quarters, and Miami proves it again.
Yeah. Again, Miami, and by the way, for anyone who just like quit, because I was on social media last night, I saw a bunch of you crying like, "Oh, this team is embarrassing." I saw people fire Guidry at halftime. You can't let Mario come home from California. I'm going to bed. I hope that you folks woke up this morning and just felt terrible. I hope you woke up this morning and you realized, wow, I'm the worst fan ever. Because, and again, I'm not saying this was a great performance. When your defense gives up 4 passing plays of 50 or more yards, that is massively problematic. I'm thankful that Miami was able to adjust, because throughout the game, Rudy, 4 passing plays of 50 or more yards that should never happen. Fernando Mendoza should not be looking like Joe Montana out there. For as good of a player as he is, he should not be going out there lighting up Miami's defense the same way a couple years ago that Middle Tennessee quarterback was like. That should never happen, okay? But I give credit for Miami's defense stepping up in the clutch moments. We just need to find a way to make the fourth quarter the way that they play for the other 3 quarters. Because, Rudy, after giving up 4 passing plays of 50 more yards in the fourth quarter, Miami's defense, and obviously Cal was playing a little differently, clock control type of deal, but they were still trying to make plays and first downs. In the fourth quarter, Miami forces 2 punts, and then they get the Kiko interception that sealed the game at the end. So the defense got stingy when they absolutely had to be, because part of that, that the 25-point comeback, but the 20-point comeback in the fourth quarter, every time Miami scored, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's great, but can we stop these guys? Like, it's great to score, but you can't mount a comeback like that if your defense can't stop anyone. The defense made 3 stops, I should say, because at the end of the game as well, when they were needed most. So I give them credit for that.
Yeah, it's something that, don't get me wrong, there's a lot that needs to be fixed on that defense. They were able to force some turnovers at the end, but something that we've seen from this Miami defense the past couple of years has been that they don't play complementary with the offense, where every time I've seen the offense march right down the field and score, it's more likely than not that the offense for the other team is going to get points immediately afterwards. They're either going to score a touchdown or they're going to score a field goal. There's very few times where you watch Miami drive down the field and score, defense forces a 3 and out, and then they go back with a short field and put more points on the board. There's a lot of momentum that's missing in that style of play that we just don't have right now. And it's one thing to give up 4 passing plays of over 50 yards, but if you look at it, it's not like there was great execution. Miami was just out of position. They were playing hero ball. They were starting to freelance a little bit. Once Lance Guidry said this, I think, in the press conference before or after Virginia Tech, where they learn a lot from high school football in terms of different styles of play that you see. This might have even been after USF. They might want to go back to doing a little bit more high school style coaching in terms of just basic X's and O's, because a lot of these are just missed assignments where people they're lining up on the field and all of a sudden they just get lost in the moment. So you're watching missed tackles, you're watching over pursuits, you're watching bad angles, you're not setting the edge. It's the same stuff that we've seen where the defense has struggled. If they fix that, the sky's the limit. They just have to fix it.
Yeah. By the way, I'm looking at, for those who are listening to the audio version, I'll describe it. So Rudy has on the screen behind him the Cam Ward Selly. It's something that I actually appreciate. I didn't even really notice this during the game, but I saw someone write a social media post about this. I appreciate the fact that when Miami was coming back, like during the comeback, they weren't doing the celebration. Like they didn't do the celebration until the game winner. So I appreciate the attitude, because you remember when we used to bust out the turnover chain when we were down 20 and had an interception, and it's like, oh, should we really be doing this right now? So,
Yeah.
and the Cam Ward celebration has kind of become this year's version of the turnover chain. It's going viral. Other teams are doing it. They're copying it because people love to copy stuff that comes out of Miami. But I appreciate the fact that, when Ward throws for a touchdown to cut the deficit from 28 to 20 points after a 2-point conversion, he's not doing the celebration. He saved it for the moments that matter. And when we come back, and folks, we got a lot more to come on this live episode of Locked On Canes. We're recapping this one. This one feels like even more of a miracle than last week. I mean, to come down from 25, we're recapping Miami's 39-38 victory at the Cal Golden Bears. I want to talk about more of the top individual performers because, again, it wasn't just Cam Ward. Xavier Restrepo continues to make plays. He continues to climb on the all-time Miami receiving lists. Rueben Bain had his return. Simeon Barrow had himself a big game. Guys, you want to keep it locked right here. We are literally only getting started on this. Well, hold on. Let me put you back on the screen, Rudy. You were doing the Selly right when I cut you.
Setting him with the Selly to the commercial break.
There's the Selly. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. There's going to be some coaches, not my coach, but some coaches around the country who are going to be spicing up their LinkedIn profiles after the way that their games went. And folks, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. Because in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For the everydayers, make sure you sign up to become a Locked On Canes insider. I include the link in the show description below. You get text messages directly from my phone to yours with breaking news, show updates. Sometimes I'll text you guys when I'm panicking, when Miami's down 25 in a game. You get all of that on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. Try it free for 14 days. And then if you want to opt in, it's $4.99 a month. Give you a lot of added value on there on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. Let's address Rudy. Last 2 weeks, there's something for the haters to complain about. And I know the 1-5 fans are awfully loud after maybe they should be a little bit more concerned about their own team right now. But what did you think of the Wesley Basaint hit on Fernando Mendoza? Because like when I saw that live, my reaction was, that's a big hit. Led with the shoulder, hit him in the shoulder. Like it's a violent play, but football can be a violent game. And then the more they kind of start sitting there, and then I'm like, wait, are they going to review? Oh, could this be a targeting situation? And then, yeah, I'm watching the replay 100 times, and Miami Dolphins legend Brock Osweiler, who's doing color commentary during the game, is like, oh, yeah, that's definitely targeting. And I see folks on social media talking about it. First of all, what did you think? Did you think it was targeting? And second of all, no matter what you think, did you expect them to rule it targeting?
I'm a Miami fan. I'm used to having the team be affected by the officials. I'm used to anything that looks like a good hit is going to get flagged. I'm glad they didn't they didn't throw a flag immediately on it. I had to go to replay. Looking at it again and looking at it in, live motion, I don't think it was targeting, but at the same time, the thing I'm seeing different in how officials are calling targeting now, I think the biggest example is what happened to Grayson McCall, that poor kid over at NC State, is if you are a runner and you are keeping the ball and you're lowering your head and you're trying to get extra yards, they're not going to call targeting like they did when that penalty was first introduced. So Bain got his shoulder in front, hit him shoulder to shoulder inside the shoulder pad. Was there some collateral damage where the heads might have gotten a little close? Yeah, but that's not targeting. And, Brock Osweiler, someone has to tell him this is the Miami Hurricanes, not the Miami Dolphins. I don't know why that poor crew was kind of put together at the last second because Reese already had a long day at College Game Day, being up at like 6 a.m. over there and has to call the game. Don't know if he had a little too much to enjoy and also was feeling really under the weather, but really weird kind of a ragtag group. So I don't like that. And also I'm tired of the ACC officiating critics that are out there. Granted, we don't like ACC officials at all, but let's stop with the narrative that Miami is getting preferential treatment from ACC officials. That's never been the case. And Miami's been in the conference for 20 years now and never really get a call. Frankly, I'm surprised that we didn't get screwed more on the last drive because there's a few pieces where everyone wants to argue, oh, well, people have forgotten what RPOs are and how you block for RPOs and hearing this, there's an eligible men downfield. Yeah. No, it's an RPO, dummy. Like that's how it's blocked. That's how it's executed. But hey, that's all that matters.
And like Richard in the comments, he says officiating was bad. Like it was bad on all fronts because they took a Miami play back. It was Sam Brown who was like way down the field, but he had like a toe or a heel that was out of bounds, which they rightfully called that one back. But Rudy, there was when Jaden Ott scored his 66-yard touchdown on the 4th down and 1, which I'm not excusing Miami's defense because that was an awful play to give up there. But it looked to me like he stepped out of bounds on that play. They didn't even take a look at it, and they called it a touchdown. So, the officials, unfortunately, consistency is not a strong point from ACC refs. And we had a couple of reviews last night on both sides that probably could have taken 30 seconds that took about 10 minutes, like the sack on Cam Ward, where, we could all see the knee was down and they took about 10 minutes to review that anyway. So I could understand why ACC officiating takes their lumps, but let's talk a little bit more about Ward and some of the other playmakers. So, and again, Rudy, it's incredible how, if they probably do have this somewhere, but if you were to watch like a live tracker, like live in the moment of Cam Ward's Heisman odds, how much that must jump up and down even during games, because when he committed 3 turnovers against Virginia Tech, his Heisman odds were probably like sinking. And then he leads the comeback and, he's one of the top 2 favorites again. Same thing with this one. After he threw that pick 6, you're thinking, he may have just lost the Heisman on that play. And yet Cam Ward comes back and makes magic. He ends up in this game 35 for 53. He played 81 freaking snaps in the game, which is unreal. 35 for 53, 437 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and interception, also scored a 24-yard rushing touchdown, which was a massive part of that comeback. And I would imagine, Jalen Milroe's Heisman campaign took a big hit losing to Vanderbilt yesterday. So to my understanding, the top 3 would have to be right now Cam Ward, Ashton Genty, the running back at Boise State, who's putting up video game numbers, and Travis Hunter, who continues to dominate on both sides of the ball at Colorado. Like I think that's your Heisman field right now. And Ward has already created multiple Heisman moments this year.
Multiple Heisman moments. And we were talking about this, I think, earlier in the week on Tuesday when I was on about Jalen Milroe having the brightest spotlight. So he has the biggest opportunity to show off his abilities. And hey, this might have been a 10:30 p.m. kickoff for Miami, but everybody's talking about what happened in the end. And a lot of it is, look, Cam Ward's doing it again. It's going to be the constant narrative for Miami going forward for casual college football fans is, can they stop this guy? For the better part of 3 quarters, Cal did, but the 4th quarter is different. You have to play for all 4 quarters, and Cam Ward came alive, doing exactly what Miami fans have expected him to do and have kind of grown comfortable of him doing, is finding open people, buying time, and using his legs when he needs to. And that rushing touchdown, you were talking about the celebrations earlier, he didn't celebrate. Isaiah Horton didn't celebrate. It wasn't until that last one. And that was a masterful drive where there were multiple 4th downs they had to convert. Some of it was fantastic route running by Xavier Restrepo. And a lot of it is him putting the ball on the money and making the right decisions when he needs to. And granted, I would also argue too that the Damian Martinez play where he gets, open for the 1st down and they were trying to replay to see if he had his, if Cam had crossed the line of scrimmage before throwing it, that sets up your RPO at the end too, because that mobility, the ability to move around in the pocket, get open and find your receivers, that's all Cam Ward magic.
Yeah, and some Restrepo magic, like you said, that the 77-yard catch and run that he had to set up that final touchdown was unbelievable. And here's a note on Xavier Restrepo. If you go to the list of most games with 100 receiving yards, Restrepo eclipsed that last night by a Canes football wide receiver since 1996. Restrepo is now on top of that list. Since 96, he's got 900-yard plus receiving games. He just passed Andre Johnson. That guy was pretty good. He passed, Andre's at 8. He had previously passed Philip Dorsett and Santana Moss at 7. And Restrepo's final stat line from this one, 7 receptions, 163 yards for the X-Man. Isaiah Horton, 9 receptions for 83 yards. Jacoby George, 5 for 59. Damian Martinez, like you mentioned, was instrumental catching passes as well. 4 receptions for 51 yards. Talk about a roller coaster night for Sam Brown. Sam Brown made some big plays. He also had some catastrophic drops. I mean, there's certainly a lot to talk about, good and bad, coming out of that one for him. But you also mentioned, Rudy, Miami, they had to obviously go away from the run a little bit late in the game when you don't have enough time. They were still trying to establish, and I thought Miami did a much better job establishing the running game early. Mark Fletcher was big on Miami's first scoring drive. He had 11 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. Damian Martinez, 12 carries for 42 yards and a touchdown. So if nothing else, that was encouraging because Miami had basically been unable to run the football in the first half of any of their previous games.
Yeah, the running game is an aspect that I think more fans, as they watch a game and as they see different scenarios play out, Miami was trying to establish a run and they were being successful at it. But the one thing that happened to Miami this game, at least offensively, was they had to play from behind for the majority of the game. When you start doing that, you're not exactly running the ball anymore because you need as many possessions as you can get, and you're not taking a lot of clock out. If Miami was able to have a lead, hold the lead, you would have seen a lot more of Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle. To be honest with you, though, I almost feel like Miami probably could have ran the ball even more effectively because some of the play calling there in that first half that led to Cal going on that big run was a lack of trusting your offensive line and your running game. There was a couple of plays where, we've seen some success on third downs, third and shorts, and fourth downs with the tight ends. Like, Arroyo is going out there and he gets stopped on the fourth down because of a great play by a defender, but it almost comes off too soft. And if you're looking at Miami and what they're trending for, yes, all of the experts would say Miami's going to run this ball between the tackles on fourth down. I'm happy to take that way this offensive line has been blocking for them, the way they're moving the ball running last night. I would expect them to do that more. There was a few times where I almost thought we got a little too cutesy here. Even the play action pass on third down against Virginia Tech the week before, that's not a little cutesy throw to the line to gain. That's over the top of the defense. So in terms of your play calling, I think they learned there. Don't get too cute. Like, let's go back to what we can execute in our matchups. And the running game did its job when it needed to.
I go back to a quote from our guy, Bruce Warner, the truth teller. Who's going to stop this offense? We heard a lot about Cal's defense heading into this game, and they started the game very, very well. They sacked Ward twice in the first half. Miami's pass protection was a bit shaky at times. They forced some important punts, but Miami ends up putting up 575 yards of total offense and 39 points. So Miami went below their average in points. They were averaging previously just under 50 points per game. But we heard a lot throughout the week, Rudy, about how Cal in their previous 4 matchups hadn't given up more than 14 points in any single game. Miami blew right through that, and they put up 575 yards of total offense. In a day where there were a lot of problems on the defense, no question. Like there's a lot to fix during the bye week. But I thought my defensive MVP overall was Simeon Barrow. Continues to make disruptive plays from the interior, had 2 tackles for loss and an additional sack in the game. I'll double check that stat line in a second. Let me pull up the defensive numbers here. Simeon Barrow. So Barrow had 2 He had 2 tackles for loss, a sack, 3 total tackles, and Rueben Bain also made some impactful plays in this game, Rudy. His first time seeing action since August 31st. Bain had 1.5 TFL and a half sack in this one. So I thought that they were probably my 2 defensive MVPs on a day where, the defense struggled.
Yeah, they really showed themselves in the second half. I mean, Simeon Barrow getting those 2 tackles for loss were key downs when he did them. Rueben Bain made some key tackles too when they're pressuring the quarterback with Mendoza. I almost feel like there's going to be a little bit more rhythm that comes with the defensive line in these coming weeks. The bye week couldn't come at a better time for Miami before going on the road to Louisville. Tyler Barron looked like he was kind of forcing things a little bit too. We were talking about how Cam and the offense was trying to force the ball down the field. Tyler Barron felt like he was really trying to get to the quarterback almost a little too desperately with that face mask penalty that he had on that, next to last drive that kind of bailed them out of a situation when it came through. It's just, I think what they're going to learn is, since they haven't played too much together over the course of the season, Tyler Barron and Rueben Bain, you don't need to force as much because Ruben's right there with you. You're meeting each other at the quarterback. If you're swiping and you're going to miss, that's fine. Maybe in weeks before when Rueben Bain was hurt, that quarterback escapes, but Hurricane Bain's right there. So I think there's going to be some better play from the defensive line. I think also they're going to learn working with the secondary. You just need to cover for about 3 seconds. Because when that defensive line can pin their ears back and get after them, that's all that matters. If you're not playing press coverage to begin the play, that's where problems are going to start happening. As soon as someone gets open, and those play designs, they had a guy open immediately. So I expect to see some adjustments there, and that bye week should be huge in terms of looking at some different schemes and probably disguising a few different pieces of pressure too, because the defense, at least, it looked lost at a few points in that game.
It did. It really did. It really did. And obviously Miami could use the bye week for health reasons as well. I would imagine that we may see Jalen Rivers after the bye because he's basically been a game time decision for the last 2 years. It feels like, not really the last 4 games, but hopefully we see him afterwards. And so, all right, Miami is 6-0 for the first time since 2017. Where does that put them now in the AP rankings? They're hot off the presses, guys. We'll talk about that when we come back. You know what you want to do? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And we're not done with the Game Time app. This is the only app that I use to buy tickets because they have the best, most convenient features. And folks, the prices on the Game Time app, they get lower the closer you get to the event. It's kind of fun to procrastinate and know that you're doing it for like good reasons, not bad reasons. It really is fun, whether you're buying tickets for Miami Hurricanes football games. God bless you if you're still buying Miami Dolphins tickets. You're a real one out there. Florida Panthers tickets. Guys, you want to try out the Game Time app. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Guys, make sure you turn in the all-in pricing feature. This is a game changer because they're going to show you the complete total price up front, no hidden fees at checkout. I hate hidden fees. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Guys, you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We got a deal for you. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. You know, some people might bash me for saying this, probably mostly fans of other teams. But since people are so quick to point out, you know, any time over the last couple of years, over the last several years, even when he was at Oregon, any time like time management and game management, anytime Mario Cristobal makes a mistake, you know, people, you know, they turned it into a big thing. And the knee thing from last year was understandable, but I also want to give credit where credit is due because, Rudy, these past 2 weeks, when you're pulling off fourth quarter comebacks this big, where the margin comes down to every single second, I have to commend. Now, I'm not saying coaching was perfect because obviously, you know, you had certain schematic things that, you know, a lot of that was probably execution, but a lot of things came off the rails. But when it comes to the time clock management aspect, isn't it fair to say Cristobal has been on point the last couple of weeks? Because you don't come from behind 25 points in the second half and down 20 in the fourth quarter if you're not managing the game well.
Yeah, I think our desperation as fans kind of watching the last, well, next to last offensive possession for Cal. I'm sitting there myself. I'm guilty of texting you at 3:00 in the morning saying, I wish we burned a timeout before the 2-minute came up to try to give ourselves a little bit more time with the ball. None of us, I think, expected Restrepo to go off for 70 something yards backed up at the 9-yard line. But
do you know what that reminded me of? I know you remember this. 2002, the Willis McGahee screen pass, the comeback against Florida State. How that was like similar. It was like a 70, 75-yard play. It was just like the Restrepo thing.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think that was a 78-yard screen pass. And it was one of those where, we had just forced a punt. I think we got the ball at the 20 because it was either like a touchback off of the punt. And Miami's offensive line that game, I was there. I had no voice. Water was out at halftime. We haven't even touched on the Miami locker room at Cal had no AC in it. Somehow it just miraculously broke before the game. So it's one thing for Miami to use that as an excuse for saying this was an issue, but that's part of why you're angry playing this team is that you don't even give us the basic luxuries. But that 2002 game, Miami wasn't blocking very well for Ken Dorsey. And that screen call was the perfect play call at that time to get us down into scoring position. And that throw, talk about a coverage bust. That's just, again, strength and conditioning. If you're not set, if you're sucking wind, you're coming out. It's your first play from scrimmage. So your defense is just distracted. Great job by Miami to take advantage of that.
So with all of those top 10 upsets yesterday, thankfully we avoided it. Here is the new Associated Press top 25. Miami moves up 2 spots from number 8 to number 6. Texas benefits from Alabama's shocking loss. They move up to number 1. Ohio State moves up to number 2. Oregon jumps up 3 spots to number 3 after beating Michigan State 31-10. Penn State moves up 3 spots after they gave them a lot of leeway after beating a bad UCLA team, but it is what it is. Georgia at number 5 now. Miami at 6. Alabama drops to 7. Tennessee, they also lost to Arkansas yesterday. They go down to 8. Ole Miss, who suffered the upset last week, they win against South Carolina. They move up to number 9, and Clemson moves up 5 spots to number 10. I'll scroll down the rest of this for those who want to see it, but I'm not going to dwell too much on that. But moving up to number 6, it feels right. I'm not going to complain. Now Miami's got a lot of work to do to stay in that top 10. That's for sure.
University of Miami has 2 teams in the top 25 with the SMU Mustangs cracking in there after beating another team of Miami transfers over at Louisville. So great for them. I'm not
out of the top 25 now.
Right. Louisville's out after the loss to SMU. I'm not sold on Penn State, just to be honest with you. Yeah, UCLA is not a great football team, but I think the highlight of just having an offensive lineman report as an eligible receiver and then have him kick out a block and absolutely annihilate a defensive end probably does more for your PR and for your ratings than the overall score does. So look, everything's going to take care of itself at the end of the day. I honestly expected Clemson to go in and put up 70 against Florida State. I don't know if it's just rivalry game kind of a feel, just like what Virginia Tech and Miami do when they play each other. That had a factor in woke Campbell Stadium, but I told you I'm going to keep using it. One thing we get out of this game outside of just a collective sigh of relief is friends for life with the Calgorithm, and I'm going to be using that for the rest of my life.
Well, and I was texting with, and by the way, I'm really a huge fan of Lawrence Ross, who joined our show last week. I think he's, and by the way, like he was looking very right up until Cam Ward took over in the fourth quarter. And I'm texting Lawrence during that game, and Lawrence wants to come back on the show, but I don't know. I have to confirm because he wanted to come back on the show when Cal was way ahead. I've just got to confirm that he still wants to come, and I think he does because he's a classy dude. So we'll probably either here on Locked On Canes or maybe on Locked On ACC, we'll bring Lawrence Ross back on because he wasn't wrong about Cal's offense. They did. Maybe I was wrong about Miami's defense, but Cal did put up 38 points in this one. Anyways, I want to get back to some NFL watching. I'm assuming the Miami Dolphins are still struggling. I don't even have the score open right now, but it was not fun before we started doing this. I had a lot more fun talking about the Canes. Make sure you guys follow Rudy at Rudy Tamarchio on X, spelled like Tamarchio. Follow him there. You can follow us at Locked On Canes or at Alex Dono, and make sure you're supporting all the great programming around this network. I also co-host Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs. Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin is tremendous. And we will talk to you guys again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.